you know, I have a boner for that exact one, and I read it over and over again because I love it so much. So
Well, we
anyway,
will definitely talk about that soon. I think that'll be
mhm.
another series of videos. But talking about boners, what kind of boner did Silver Flames give you? Because I did not read it. I gave up after the Hallmark. I'm living by this.
I
I feel like this is your penance for making me read it to begin with, this series to begin with. You have to tell me about this book because I'm not going to watch the
oh
series when it comes out. I have absolutely
yeah.
no interest
And
in
this
it.
is a lot of people's favorite of the series, just so you know.
I hear I okay, so
Um,
TikTok, not TikTok, I'm not on TikTok, but Instagram Reels definitely
mhm.
have painted Nesta as like apparently like she's pole dancing or something. She's got a dirty journal. So I think like everybody's got a hard on for that. Like they want to see
Yeah,
her hair come down. Um but
yeah. I mean, there's some curiosity there because she's just this brick wall, like this iron, person that
yeah.
is a bitch and has all this shit happen to her. And through all of it, uh, she doesn't warm up at all
Mhm.
throughout the entire series. Maybe a little bit during the third book, but nowhere near to she obviously there's things happening under the surface.
Yeah.
And this book is about don't get it twisted. This book is Nesta's book and her trauma and dealing with the trauma in a fantastical way. There's it starts out with her very much at the end of Frost and Starlight, where she's spending all the money, all the court money. She gets there's this particularly really bad night. She and then Feyre and Rhysand put their foot down. There is a character assassination of Rhysand in this book. He is a complete dickhead. Um, there's a reason for it, but I'll get into that. But you get the feeling that Rhysand is just he never liked Nesta to begin with, but
Nobody fucking
this
likes Nesta.
yeah, that's true. But he has
Pardon
a
me, I'm sorry.
specific cold spot for her. He doesn't like her. Um and Farah is just trying to be kind to her sister, but like got to put her foot down as a high lady. Like, look, you cannot do this anymore. You are going to be relocated to the library, and that's where you're going to live. And that's it. You can't, drink anymore. Where you're going to be sober now. Um, and to top it all off, Cassian is going to train you.
Oh, so we got a forced
Because
proximity type thing going on.
yes, we do. Yes, we do. And boy, does Nesta fight this every step of the way. She doesn't, she does concede. I mean, she doesn't have a choice. Goes to the library. Um, in the previous book, they talked about the library being run by these kind of priestesses, or not priestesses, but these like nuns.
Yeah.
Um, and they've all
They're
had
holy
some
sisters, I
trauma.
think they are.
Yeah. They've all have some trauma from the kind of archaic ways of the Court of Nightmares, or the old Fae, basically,
Mm-hmm.
women are subservient, all that jazz. So they're all kind of this sisterhood kind of deal. But Nesta doesn't run into them for a couple of days, and then she does run into them, and she ends up befriending them. Because there's this one, I do not ask me her name. There's this one who kind of matches her energy, doesn't back off when Nesta's being a complete cow to her, and you know is like chill, and they actually become friends. So that's kind of a little chip that's taken off her shoulder. Um, and Cassian comes to her house a couple different, or comes to the library a couple times trying to drag her ass to um, training. She refuses to do it. There is sexual tension, but it's like marred by her anger, and nothing really happens for a little while. Um,
Why is she so
she
angry with him? I don't like that was something at the end of Starlight. I didn't understand why she was so angry at him.
she's not angry at him. She's angry that she has feelings for him,
Okay.
and that's the reason. That's the reason. That's it.
Is it just
That's
her
all.
bias against Faye?
Yeah. Well, that too. I think she has. This book is her dealing with her violent self hatred. She
Okay.
has self hatred issues. Um, and she takes it out on everybody. And obviously, she was taking it out on herself by drinking herself under the table
Mm-hmm.
and destroying her body and letting herself go. Um, so I'm trying to remember the series of events here. It is noted that she can't stand fireplaces. She can't be near one. She sees one, she's out of there. Can't do it. And it's because, spoiler, the crackling of the firewood reminds of her dad's neck snapping at the end of the war.
Mm.
And she blames herself for her father's death. And she's also angry because she completely disrespected her father after sending them into ruin as humans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and after this big grand gesture, she had like made a note to herself to kind of try and apologize and repair that relationship. Obviously, didn't get to do that. That was taken from her from Hybern, but she still blames herself. um, she is trying. Yeah. Cassian is pining for her the whole time. She finally shows up to training with Cassian. But she doesn't fight. She just sits there and watches him fight. This eventually progresses to her talking a little bit with the sisters in the library. And Nesta's a big reader, but she reads smut. She's only
She
a
should
smut
join our
girly.
club.
Yeah, she should. She should. And oh, that's the reason she made friends, by the way. That friend that she talked about, or that the sister that she was chill with, was also a smut reader. So they like connected by
I
their
wonder
mutual interest in
if
smut.
Amryn is also a smut reader then, because they were
Oh,
getting really close. It would not surprise
they're
me.
and speaking of Amryn, Nesta's and Amryn's relationship doesn't mend until the very end of this book, and they're still not super friends, really.
Wait, why would it need to mend? I don't remember what happened between the two of them. Like, because they were close.
They were close.
What caused them to not be close?
I think Amryn is more on the side of you're acting like a petulant child. Why are you? Yeah. And like completely just disregarded Nesta. Was like, come back to me when you act like an adult, basically. So
Okay. I mean,
there was
that's
a whole
fair.
thing.
That's fair.
Yeah, it is fair. Because Amryn is this
She's
ancient
an
creature.
otherworldly being. Like, if I
And
remember
she
correctly from
has
the series, she's not even of this world.
no,
She came
she's
from
not.
somewhere else.
And she doesn't have the patience for Nesta's bullshit. And
None
she
of us
knows,
really have the patience for Nesta's bullshit.
and you get the feeling that that Amryn knows that Nesta has to go through her own shit to be her own person. And that's what this book is about. So Nesta starts reading about these ancient Fey Valkyries, that were these women who warriors, and she gets the idea in her head to, or she gets inspired, I think. So she does eventually start training with Cassian, and I think there was a bet between her and Cassian, um, to finally get her out there,
Mhm.
but it also was motivated by the fact that she's inspired by these women, not only the women that are traumatized that live with her, but also the Valkyries as well. So she does. She starts training. She realizes that it's a really good form of stress relief. She ends up loving it, but she's weak as shit. She has it's not like Farah where she went out in the forest and hunted for their meals. Like
Right.
Nesta never did that. She's this twig.
Well, she was
There's
raised
this
to be a lady, and
yeah,
you know, they made a
and she
point
was
of
raised.
that.
They also made a point that she was raised to be this figurehead of the family, or like kind of groomed to be this dancer. She's a lovely dancer. And they never showcase her talents in the previous books
No.
because obviously shit was happening.
Right.
And she didn't, she didn't feel comfortable enough to dance. But um yeah, she's a lovely dancer. But she was groomed by her mother, which we finally get some lore about her mom, their mom, how she wasn't the best person in the world. Um, and Nesta was the golden child of the family.
Oh, not
So,
Elaine.
nope, not Elaine, Nesta. So that's kind of the reason why Nesta treats Elaine the same way that her mother treated her. Um,
Oh, okay.
and then, of course, Feyre gets the short end of the stick. Um, but yeah. So I mean, it's just trauma all around. I honestly am curious to see what Elaine's point of view is because yeah, being in the sidelines of all this bullshit happening.
Mhm.
Um Cassian and Nesta of course have this very like thick sexual tension happening. It finally breaks, and it happens when there's a dining table scene where Nesta goes under the table and
In front of everyone?
Azriel's in the other room and interrupts them. It's like, "Hey, knock knock knock. Please don't make a lot of noise. Please don't. Also, this room smells like sex." Yeah.
Still
So
not gonna read it,
that's
but that would have been interesting to watch.
yeah. Okay. I'm sorry you guys. I'm missing a lot of details here, so please don't come for me. But um there's so much of it, and it's really nasty. It's not like the romantic, dirty talk that you got with Feyre and Rhysand.
Well, this is
This
good
shit
because that
is
shit got tiring fast.
it did. This is a change of pace and where it's hot and dirty all the time. Um, but it's also exhausting in that way. Um, yep. I'm reading my review here. I'm ranting about the lack of creativity in the sex scenes. It's all the same. Let's see. Yep. Yep. Oh yeah, magical items. So Nesta is still powerful even after the cracking of the cauldron.
Well, yeah, because she
She
didn't
has
give that
this.
part back, right?
She didn't. No, she's got this power, and it is through a series of events. Don't ask me to remember them. It's realized that she wields the power of death. She's got like necromancy abilities. Yep. So very, very powerful. She and I think Asriel and Rhysand. No. I think it's Cassie. It's the Bat Boys and her.
Mm-hmm.
They go on this expedition to recover one of the three artifacts. There's this three artifacts. It's the crown, the mask, and the heart.
Oh, is this different than the
And
other artifacts that we had to use during the last
yep,
book?
yep. There's three more MacGuffins, guys.
And what's the
And I
purpose
think
of getting these artifacts?
it's
Or is
I
it
don't remember.
just
I'm so
is it just
sorry. I don't
it's a
remember.
fetch quest,
No.
right?
It's no. It's I think what it is that they want to be in power of these or control of these artifacts to keep them out of evil hands. Cuz once combined the wielder can like stop time, I think is the thing. Or reverse time or can manipulate time and space. So they're really ancient, powerful artifacts. Um, in order to retrieve one of them, I think the harp. No, not the harp. I think the mask. They go to this area where there's like this lake, and Nesta feels like she's called to the lake, so she goes in it. So Nesta has, because she has this latent power with the cauldron abilities, she knows where these artifacts are. She has a connection to these artifacts. Um, she's called to the lake, and this like mer creature tries to drown her and almost successfully drowns her. But
She calls up the dead fishes.
not the dead fishes, the undead.
Oh,
She has like an army of undead that
was-
save her ass.
I was close. There was still
You were
undead
close.
fishes.
Yep. And she rises to the surface, and Cassian is like, holy shit, this is very hot, but also very scary. Oh my god. So yeah. Huge detail. Feyre is pregnant. They keep it a secret from the rest of the courts because obviously, Feyre, the way
Babies
that
don't
Fae
happen
are,
very often.
they don't happen very often. And also, he is Illyrian. She is not. This is a problem. So the way that the baby is, this is the reason why, because the Illyrians have wings. The females have a bigger uterus and canal to accommodate the wings. But what happened is because Feyre has these shape-shifting abilities, how the baby was conceived was in the air. Thank you, Sarah J. Maas, for that. So she was essentially Illyrian when
That's
the
right,
baby
because
was
she had her own
conceived.
wings. I forgot about that.
But she morphed back to her high fae self before she knew she was pregnant. She found out she was pregnant, and they were scared once they found out that they had wings, because usually if there's a mixed marriage, the woman or the female dies in childbirth. Like it's like 100% mortality rate.
Right. Which is why
So
Rhysand's mother was Illyrian. And
Yep.
it wasn't a problem.
Exactly. And the doctor warns her to not switch back to Illyrian because that could harm the baby. So no more shape shifting, no nothing. You're on bed rest. That's it.
So wait,
and that's the
being
reason.
Illyrian would help, but she can't become Illyrian because
The transformation is too traumatic for the baby. Yep. I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Okay.
I know, but this is a huge part of the story, and let me tell you why. Okay.
I'm listening. I'm opening some packages while I'm listening, but I'm listening.
That's fine. So finally, there's this. Nesta still thinks her relationship with Cassian is only sexual in nature. And obviously there's some real feelings bubbling underneath the surface. She doesn't know, but or she's ignoring them because she has other trauma to deal with. Um, and she basically convinces the sisterhood to be trained by Cassian to become Valkyries. And she successfully does that. Not with all of them at first. It was only her friend and, a couple more people joined in. Um, and then in order to become a full Valkyrie, you have to like climb this mountain and fight. Or no, you have to do like this race, like marathon thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then but you're facing off against the males, and the males from the Court of Nightmares, who are misogynistic pricks.
I mean, the Illyrians are not that much better. Let's be real.
They aren't. They aren't. So, yeah. So there has to be conflict somewhere, guys. Right?
Yeah.
There has to be more conflict than just Feyre about to die.
Well, I mean, like,
so
this isn't something that Nesta would necessarily be opposed against anyways, because like she's lived with humans and they were kind of the same way, so I guess it's not really stuff
right.
she's not used to.
No, I exactly. So she's not super like angered or motivated by them. It's just it lights more fire under her butt to try and beat them.
Right.
So they train really hard with Cassian. There's more sex that happens between her and Cassian. Nesta finds out that so Feyre doesn't know about how dire the situation is because Rhysand made the decision to not tell her. Naughty Rhysand. Bad Rhysand. Why did you do that?
They really do have a character assassination after him. Because, like, that's not him in the rest of the books.
No. Being a concerned father changes his personality completely. So it's really annoying, actually.
That makes it sound like he is more concerned for the baby than it is for her.
Ding, ding, ding! That's how I felt, too. And so that was a big ick. So Nesta found that out, and in this huge fight with Feyre, she lets it slip. Nesta lets it slip that, oh, so Rhysand kept it from you? That, do you know that you're gonna die? And that was like the lowest of the low that Nesta could have pulled to try and get an advantage in an argument with her sister. And Nesta goes into a complete depressive spiral after that because she immediately feels remorse. She feels like the worst piece of shit on the face of the planet, as she should.
Fair.
That was a horrible move on her part. And she kind of retreats and she wants to like die, basically. Cassian takes her and oh no. Rhysand finds out, and you hear through the telepathic pathway between him and Cassian, because they have this telepathic connection between each other.
Wait a minute, I thought it was just
all Illyrians, I think, because he's the High Lord, so he can do it.
Okay.
And so he's like, Cassian, get her the fuck out of here. I don't want to see her face ever again, or I will kill her. So he takes her into the mountains for like a little camping trip. And of course, she's never done this bullshit before because she's this princess. And she doesn't eat. She doesn't talk for the first like week that they're out there. And Cassian's not like babying her at all. He's just like, get up, we're walking. You're gonna sleep now. Or he tries to force her to eat and she won't eat. finally, she passes out. Duh, she's been walking for days and she's not eating. She's depressed and she gives up basically. And Cassian finally gets her to open up after she finally breaks down. She That's when she talks about her mother. That's when she talks about the fireplace triggering her and her dad. Um, that's when she talks about how um, basically her perspective from the way she treated Feyre and everything. And it still didn't make sense to me. I think she was still being a brat, but kind of makes sense given how she was treated by her mother. um, but she like finally breaks down and cries like for the first time, and she's like wailing. And she confesses that she hates herself, that she blames herself for she was wanted to apologize to Feyre, but because of how much shit that has happened, she's feels like she let it go on too long, and there's so much left unsaid that she doesn't know how to approach the situation now. And that Nesta hates herself so much that she's like, no one can ever forgive me. I don't forgive myself. Like, why would Feyre ever forgive me? So she just continues doing the things that people expect her to do, which is be a bitch because she hates herself. So, like, why change? Why
Right.
change now? So, like, okay, I see that. But also, I don't know. It's this whole cycle of self-pity that's a little upsetting, but whatever.
Like, is it upsetting because it's unrealistic, or is it upsetting
No,
because it's
it's not.
very realistic?
It's very realistic. It's very realistic. I think people get into their head too much. And when you are, especially when you are a golden child, um, and you can do no wrong, I think you are kind of shoehorned into trying to be perfect in that person all the time. And if and yeah, I think you become narcissistic. You do. So she is this kind of person, but like it makes sense. Her trauma makes sense. I don't. I feel bad for her, but I don't necessarily still like her. You know what I mean? I still don't
Right.
like her as I still don't like her as a character. I have empathy for her,
Right.
but I still don't like her. You know what I mean?
No, I totally
There's
get
other
that.
ways to handle your bullshit, but whatever.
Yeah, drugs and alcohol.
That's
Like,
what she did though.
that's
That's what she did. If drugs existed in her, she would have done them. But they don't. Alcohol did and gambling did. So, yep. Okay, so Cassian also confesses about how he blames himself, Moore's trauma and everything. So he has a lot of self-hatred as well, and they're like two sides of the same coin. And then they finally like confess to each other kind of, and they're like together for real this time.
not just
Um
handies under the table.
mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm. Um there's this whole so the Valkyrie subplot ends afterward, where she does this whole competition. But the thing is, one of the Alarians has it out for Nesta because he has this connection with the chick, her friend. I'm sorry, I don't remember her name.
The nun, the
The
holy
nun.
sister.
Her, yeah. And just based on principle, he's against all that shit, so he wants to kick her ass. But it becomes bloodthirsty very quickly, and he like at the top of the mountain, there's this whole battle between them, and she almost dies. I think she almost dies completely, and Cassian, oh god, it's all coming back to me now. Cassian shows up because obviously it's not explicitly stated outright that Cassian's her mate, but they have a connection between each other, and they have been effing all over the area.
All over
Um,
Valeris.
yeah, all over Valeris. So people know. In order to get one of the three MacGuffins, the harp,
Mm-hmm.
it was under that artifact was in the mountain, I think. Um,
Amarantha's mountain or the mountain of
mhm.
Valeris?
Mountain of Valeris, I
Okay.
believe.
Where the Court of Nightmares is. Because
Yes.
remember, Court of Nightmares is what Amarantha based Under the Mountain on.
Don't quote me on this. I'm sorry. I don't remember. It's
It's
one
all
of the
good.
mountains. It's really deep in there. Bad area. People don't go in there. But it calls to her, and she touches the harp, and she sees the queen that got away, basically, I think.
Yeah.
The fourth queen or whatever. And the fourth queen smiles and is like, I have one of the other artifacts. I know. I know where you are now, basically. So she gets the harp out of there. They're in possession of, I think, 2 out of 3 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, before the fight on the mountain happens. Um, Cassian shows up, and there's something wrong with him. He is
It's
under the
not Cassian.
control. It's not. Well, it is physically, but mentally he's under the control. I think he's got the tiara on. That's the third object. Or maybe it's no, it's the queen. The queen has the tiara on.
Mm-hmm.
She has him under mind control, and he and Nesta fight now. And he almost kills her, obviously. And
Third attempt on her life.
yeah, because she finally beats the Ilarian, barely. Cassian comes in, tries to kick her ass. The queen shows up. Cassian turns on the queen and kills her. But he's still under mind control when that happens. So he's got like a very strong fortitude. They now have the 3 MacGuffins.
Okay.
It comes time. So the climax of the book, Feyre is in labor. They still do not have a plan. They don't have a birth plan other than pray for the best. Hopefully she doesn't die. Uh, Nesta shows up, and this is like directly after the battle. She doesn't have a whole lot of time to recover.
Mm-hmm.
So she's all bloody and bullshit, but they have all the artifacts. Nesta watches Feyre pretty much bleed out to death, and the baby that is born is stillborn. It's already gone. It's like this like white, creature with wings, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very obvious that the baby has been gone a long time. So obviously Nesta is upset, but it pales in comparison to how Rhysand it feels. He's like wailing and
He's
crying and
probably
everything.
beside himself.
Oh yeah. It's really sad because he lost his son and his wife. She dons the 3 MacGuffins and stops time because she is she wields the power of death.
Yeah.
Which in turn also gives her the power of life. So she basically rewinds time and basically saves Feyre and her son as well. Her son like time snaps back into place, and Farah wakes up, and the baby starts screaming. That's what happens. And then Rhysand knew it was her because she has all these artifacts on her. And basically, or I'm saying basically a lot. I'm sorry, guys. Rhysand showers her with the best. I don't know, what is it? It's not wedding, is it? It's not even a wedding. It's like a, I don't know. It's some particular. It's not. Is it a day? I don't know. She joked early on in the book that she wants a party.
Mhm.
Maybe it is their wedding. I don't know. But Rhysand showers Nesta with gifts, and Nesta kind of does a 180 in her personality and is actually like, I mean, she went through her trauma. She's
Mhm.
resolved it. Now it's time to pick up the pieces and move on.
Mhm.
So Elaine has this moment where she stands up to Nesta. And I can't remember if that happens in Akawar or Silver Flame. If you don't remember it, then it happens in Silver Flame.
It might. I think there was a moment in Starlight where
Okay, maybe it was Starlight.
I think.
But after that, Nesta and Elaine never really made amends. Elaine was just avoiding Nesta. So Elaine was MIA throughout this whole book. So,
Well, I mean, there goes Nesta's purpose. Like, her whole
oh,
thing was.
this is Nesta's. Yeah, they're wrapping up Nesta's story. I doubt we're going to see much of her in the future.
So, since I didn't read it, I'm going to ask you:
Yeah.
are you going to read the next one?
I'm going to probably listen to it. But
Okay.
at first, I'm not going to do it right away.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to give it a couple months of it being out in the open to see how people feel about it.
Okay.
Um, Even a couple months out from reading these books, I feel exhausted.
Yeah.
Like talking about it again exhausts me. I think I'm over their story. Their story, it's, you know what it is? It is a good story that you watched on television where they're overstaying their welcome and they keep going and they keep doing stuff and adding more shit and adding more MacGuffins.
So, season
And
8 of
I
that 70s show.
basically,
Yeah. So, okay, maybe not read, but definitely listen to the next one. What
I
about.
don't think talk about it because I don't want to talk about these books anymore. Like,
Like, there's a big fandom for these books, and I don't get it.
I get it.
I get parts of it, but like everybody's agog over the Bat Boys, which, let's be real, the story is, like, all of it is just
Yeah.
the story of the Bat Boys told from these women's perspectives.
Yes, yeah. Uh though at the same time it's delving into deep emotional trauma
Yeah. Well, yeah.
for all of these characters. And they do have some elements of them going into the male trauma too, but she doesn't, I don't think, because she doesn't have that perspective. She knows female trauma.
Right.
Um
I mean,
she
they
goes
very
into
lightly touched on Rhysand's
Rhysand and
trauma
Cassian,
and Cassian. But
but
it was
very
very,
surface
very,
level.
yeah. Like, he talked about his parents, and the reason they went into the war, but still how his dad was a total asshole, and his
Mhm.
mom and sister died at the hands of Tamlin's family, which, like,
Yeah.
ugh.
I will say this. As far as the trauma goes, it's believable, and the way things are resolved is pretty good. I
Mm-hmm.
think she has a really good way of orchestrating the stories to fit the subplot or the subtext of them going through trauma and resolving their trauma.
Mm-hmm.
After the first book, that's all these books are about.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's why they're so popular. And then they sing true to a lot of people, young people, um, who of course love the romanticy aspect of it. And of course these people, the Bat Boys are these pinnacles of
Right.
perfection and what all male fantasy,
Should aspire to.
Yeah, exactly. And
Not me. Give me
that
my
that appeals.
give me a type like my husband. Who wants to
I
cuddle.
I'm the same way. I find the Bat Boy very, very white bread, very
Hmm.
cut run of the mill, cut and
Every
dry,
every
one
single
note.
every single male character in any of the books that we have read have been like, oh no, he is the hot. He is the hot. He is the hot. And I'm
Yeah.
just
Maybe
like
it's just a
she is the
romanticy
cute and
trope,
she is the
though.
hot and like give
Mhm.
me some personality. Like I'm
I need okay. I realized we're gonna talk briefly about the Ensnared series. Um, I realized that in order for me to be interested in a male character, I think I really like the self-loathing, um, sexually repressed
types.
uh, types, possibly bisexual, likely bisexual. 200 plus years old is a plus
Well, I
for
mean, I
me.
don't mind a 200-year plus, but you cannot act like a 17-year-old.
I agree.
Like, and that's,
That's a huge aspect.
I mean, my husband, God bless him, is a man nearing middle age. I'm nearing middle age. That is terrifying. Um, and there are moments where he is in, and I told him this yesterday when we were in the car. He had like a pie, a hand pie,
Mhm.
and it was a chocolate pudding when we went and did some things, and he was eating it and there was just crumbs all over him. I'm like, you are a toddler, but that is not his personality.
Mhm.
There are moments where that kind of childlike spark is there, but
Mhm.
that's not him, of a whole. Like, he is very serious and he is very dedicated, and he knows when to be an adult and when to be playful. And
Mhm.
most of the time, these characters are not like that.
Mhm.
You know, like they're either all gas or they're all break.
Mhm.
There's no in between. Um,
I need nuance in my characters in order for me to fall in love with them, and I have to say, as much as I do love or, I don't adore this series, but I have enjoyed the ACOTAR series.
mhm.
Obviously, the only I have to say the first 3. I
Yeah,
think keep it the first 3. I'm exhausted at this point.
yeah,
I don't need to go further. I even though I enjoyed it, there's not a single character that I fell in love with and I'm like head over heels like, "Oh my god, if this person was in real life, wow." I do like Lucian because he's a three-dimensional character. He
yes.
has depth and you can see the wheels turning in his head and be like,
Oh,
"Huh,
there's a
shit,
brain
what do I
cell
do?"
rumbling around.
I don't know.
Okay, so then let's change over. Do you anticipate reading any more SJM?
I do people keep telling me to read Throne of Glass, and it's more like vampires apparently. So that's more up my alley than Fae.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I will give it a try for the third time. I have tried to read these books twice. I just couldn't get into them, or maybe I was just in a spot where I was interested in reading something else.
Yeah.
But I think I might do the audiobook because if I'm not super gung ho into a book, it will take me a week plus to read.
Okay.
But
Now,
if I'm interested, it'll take me a couple days.
I know that there's one series that's like, I don't know, 7, 8 books long of hers, and
Mhm.
basically she ends up being a superhero at the end of it. Another of the one. I don't know
Mhm.
which one that is. The
That would be The Throne of Glass.
is that
That's her longest series, yeah. I think
um
so.
I th-
Because Crescent City just came out with their 3rd book.
and I think Crescent City is the one the coworker told me is a much better series than Akatar, but I don't
It depends
remember.
on who you ask. It depends on who you I think it's a subjective thing.
Yeah.
But I don't like a contemporary fantasy, so I'm probably not gonna read those.
Okay. Okay.
It's contemporary,
That's fair.
so
So that, I guess, is going to wrap up our Akatar
yeah.
review and read along.
It
Thank you for reading it for me. I just couldn't after
No, I get it, and
Starlight.
I'm sorry if it's just it seems like we're being negative. I There are positives about this series. I think there's obviously the mental health stuff
Hmm.
is great. I think it's really well written and well integrated into the story and their characters. Um,
I'm
I
kind
think
of just done with everybody having trauma. Like,
it's
not
it's what these books
everybody.
are about.
Not. I'm gonna try and find my husband smirking at me over here. Like, yes, I love my trigger warning page, but like, not
Mhm.
everything needs to divulge into trauma. You know,
That yeah.
like sometimes characters can just be characters living their
And that's
life.
kind of what I'm hoping to see out of Elaine's book because Elaine seems to be coping with this trauma far better than her
Well,
sisters
let's be real. She didn't have a lot going for her in her life except for this betrothal who did show up
to
for
the
the war,
human. Mhm.
did help during the war. Um, but like, she didn't have a hard life. People fucking took
No.
care of her.
Yep.
Like
It was
Nesta babied
either
her,
the
and
father, the
Feyre provided for her. Like
yep.
she didn't have any other family taking care of her. Like everything was met by those two.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah. Okay, so
Final thoughts.
I'm glad I stopped where I did.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think I'm gonna raid any more SJM,
Mhm.
to be honest.
It's just not your cup of tea. That's
It's
fine.
I do enjoy high fantasy, but it has to
Mhm.
be. I've said this about many things. It has to be good high fantasy,
Mhm.
and I think the first two books we talked about plot holes and how I found fixes for them.
Mhm.
Second book still stands out as the powerhouse of what I've read.
I
Um,
agree.
it was beautifully done. The third book went by very quickly after a certain point, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I was still like scratching my head about things and wondering
Yeah, there's a
why.
lot of plot holes in the 3rd one.
And the fact that I don't want to read about another one. Like,
And
not
that yeah.
every main character needs to be a Neo. Like, yeah, it just
I can understand these being the best thing since sliced bread if you hadn't read any other romantasy, the one
or high
story.
fantasy, or high
Yeah.
fantasy for that matter.
If this is your introduction to romantic fae, then you're gonna be like, no other book compares. This is the best thing I've ever read.
Mhm. Um,
But
but I
but there's a
mean,
lot more. There's a lot of other things out there that are
yeah.
really, really, really good. If they're just not hyped up or talked about as often.
I
So.
mean, like one of my favorite romanticities in the YA genre, even, it's an
Mhm,
older series. I still have it. I
mhm,
love this series. I've reread it multiple times. Maybe not in the last 10 years because I've grown up some. But if anybody
mhm,
wants a really good romantasy, and like you really take this journey on trauma and multiple relationships and figuring out where people are and just like these MacGuffins and stuff like that, Tamara Pierce The Linus Quartet is one of the
Oh
best
yeah.
series I have ever read in
Hmm.
this genre, YA romantasy. It is a fantastic, and I mean, it was published in like the 80s.
Hmm.
It's so good. I would take that, and that's a 4-book series.
So nice and complete.
It's very complete, and it does branch off. Like, um, I think it was called the Tricksters something. Excuse me. A couple like 10-15 years ago, she came out with a new series continuing the story
Hmm.
of the Linus Quartet, but from the perspective of the daughter of the heroine
Okay.
from the and it
Okay.
was so
That's
good.
a spin-off.
It's a spin-off, but it connected so well. You got to see like not even 20 years after the end of the fourth book, like
Hmm.
where Alana's at, where George is at, uh King Jonathan. I can't believe I remember these characters' names. And you follow
It's
their
better than me,
daughter.
girl. Holy cow.
Like
Yeah.
it is a much better series than this shit. I'm not gonna lie. It's so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah. I can't say anything else. It's just a better series. What about you? What are your takeaways?
My takeaways is that, yeah, basically what I said earlier. I think that you come from a background where you have been a lifelong reader and you have all this knowledge of previous romantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and you come into this with that perspective of you're comparing. No matter if you try not to compare,
Yeah.
you are comparing to previous, to your favorites. Like, that's what I mean when I'm talking about the things that I read and I compare it to my favorite story. I don't mean to do that, but I am doing that.
Yeah.
And because I have such a soft spot for my favorites, I'm going to look at the things that I read in a different lens than
Yeah.
someone who is new to reading or new into the smut or romantasy
Mm-hmm.
scene. Pick up these books that have been super hyped on social media, that are the first book really, really good right off the bat, hooks you in.
Yeah.
Second book, even better. Holy cow, this is the best thing I've ever read ever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you get those young folk that go to social media, talk about it, and then the cycle of hype continues. And that's, I think, it was lightning in a bottle. These guys, this series was just super elevated,
Yeah.
to maybe a point where you wouldn't agree. Um,
I don't think it's
um,
worth it. Like the hype is
worth
not worth it.
worth the pedestal that it's on.
Yeah.
People put it on a high pedestal, where it's, you know,
It's the best thing ever.
exactly. But again, there's nothing wrong with liking this
No,
series.
no. It's just
There's
not
It's
my
really
thing.
good.
It's just not
It's
my
really
thing.
good. It's just, there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
Branch out.
Yeah.
There's a lot more, and
Yeah.
more, and like when you'll find and discover, read some things, and you're just like, oh my goodness, holy, like, how have I never heard about this? This is amazing. And then you
Yeah.
read another one, better. Like, it's hard. Even now, when I read things, it's hard to even put like a star rating on something,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, I gave this previous book 5 stars, but if I were to go back and reread it again, I wouldn't feel the same way. Not at
Right.
all.
Right.
So,
Perspective is most definitely um, shaded by our experiences. And if you haven't experienced a lot, then the first thing you do experience is going to be your highest quality. Um, and I mean, we've talked about that plenty of times already on this channel.
mhm.
So, if you guys did enjoy reading this series, great. Keep reading. We always want you to keep reading. Your brain does not get worked unless it encounters new stimuli. So, if this is your favorite series, great. Please continue watching. We are done with this series at this point.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
at least we're not going to talk about it like we have been in this series of videos. We do
And if
have,
there's like a point that we missed completely, and there's certain things
Oh
that,
my
like,
gosh, yes. Please
please let us
tell
know.
us. We would love, I mean, we're not above not discussing things further. We just probably
I don't
won't make another video about it.
Right.
Unless we have like a whole bunch of questions like, okay, what did you guys, what
Well, what
about
about this?
this? Right. We might do a
Yeah.
follow up if there are people that ask us to do a follow up. Um, we do have another series that we are planning to discuss. And that's because it
Mhm.
ties into our July pick, my July pick. Um, Cass picked out June, which is here.
Yes.
We'll be talking about May's next in our next video. This is
Bound by Lorelei Jane.
yep. So we're going to be talking about Whispers of the Deep next. That was my pick for May.
Mhm.
And then we will reveal July after we have done Bound. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I've read so many books already this month. I haven't written anything, which that does remind me we should definitely do maybe a Twitch channel or something,
Okay.
where we can discuss writing techniques.
Mhm.
Because I think one of the things that we have come up across a lot in our reading is things that could have been done better. We could discuss. We can. I know you and I have had discussions about plot holes and writing
Mhm.
yourself into, just a corner, and I do think that probably happened with
Mhm.
SJM, just a tiny bit. People were expecting a thing, and like she felt like she had to deliver. um, but I know you're working on something. I know I'm working on something. I'm
Mhm.
actually working on two things now that I think about it.
Ooh, okay.
But like I don't want to write about the one, you know
No.
like I don't want to write it. In fact, Sabine in that first story, she's not the
Mhm.
one.
Mhm.
Like she, I think I don't know if I've told you about it. I know you've read a whole bunch about it. I've read what
Mhm.
I had written. She's not the one, and I
I
think,
like I like a story with believable characters.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah, like I do have to go back in and revise it, some of it, because like I don't think, um, having experienced anxiety attacks, it's very hard for me to write about anxiety attacks. And I know Sabine at least has two in what I've written already, but I don't think it's very clear. Um,
Mhm.
or the reasons that she has them is very clear.
Mhm.
And then in this new story, Kara, she's also not the one. Things
Mhm.
have happened because of her, but she is not the reason that things will get resolved or the reason that things happened, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. So, yeah, I think we could workshop together. Maybe get some other people in, and they can ask or contribute. That might be fun. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so we're done with the series. We have another series that we're coming up with. We'd love to hear if there are any other series that everybody
Yes.
is interested in our opinions on.
Mhm.
Um, uh, we should also. I have a little video series about my birthday gift that I'm putting together. That'll be uploaded in chunks as well. Um, I'm also thinking that maybe we should just do like a video every once in a while of an interesting read that we read on our own, and maybe not a co-read. Like
Oh, I'm down for that.
you know, um, and I do want to tell you about one of these. I just picked up a book last night, um, and it's kind of interesting. It's a mash of a couple of different stories, and I don't know if I'm liking it. I've only gotten like maybe 22% in, and it's called